always think about Abraham when God asked him to do what he did with Isaac. And I think Abraham was struggling with his faith. It's just me. I think he was struggling. I think he'd gone through some difficult times with Hagar and with some other situations. And I think he was maybe wondering about his faith. And so I think God knew a lot more about Abraham's faith than Abraham did. But he needed to show Abraham what really was in his heart. He really does love the Lord, Abraham. I know he does. But I need to show Abraham that. And I felt like that was a moment for me that I think God knew all along. God did know all along what was going to happen, but he needed to put me in a situation, a test to show me, Brian, good job.
Wow.
I knew you had it, but you were having some doubts. And so it really, that's still very strong in me. That time with him.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us today for another edition of There Is More. There is more. There's more to you than your Social Security number, than even the job title at your office, or what kind of car you drive, or what kind of street you live on. Those things are part of who we are, but there's more to who we are, and just that's what this is all about. I want you to join me in meeting today a dear friend and brother for a number of years who happens to be a CPA, and I understand you can't buy those at Walmart. You have to literally earn a certified public accountant degree. True. Brian Kendrick. Brian, welcome.
Yes,
welcome,
good to be here.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time today. And, if we could just start kind of in the beginning, before career, or even before marriage and kids.
Okay.
Where'd you come from?
Well, my dad's a preacher.
Really?
And Southern Baptist, or he was. He's passed away now. And grew up, or actually was born in Raymondville. Down in the valley. And 5 years old, Dad moved to San Antonio, pastored Alamo Heights Baptist Church.
Did he really?
Yeah, for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And then he was called up to the huge city of Idalou, Texas, about 1,200 people outside of Lubbock.
Yeah.
And he pastored there until I graduated from high school. And then Mom, she just, she followed him all along the way. Dad was an old Marine sergeant.
Really?
World War II.
Wow.
He was a sergeant of a survey crew. He had the luxury of finding the enemy.
Oh my goodness.
And plotting where he was, and then radioing that in to either the commanders or the planes or the ships or whatever, the coordinates of where the enemy was. So that was quite a responsibility.
Now that would have been the Pacific Theater of
That's
War,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many years or months was he overseas?
Well, I'm not absolutely sure. He didn't see my oldest brother until he was 3 years old.
Goodness.
So when he first saw him, he and Mom got married, and then just shortly after she got pregnant, he was called, into service. So he never saw him until he was 3. But I'm going to guess 5, 6 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Something like that.
Wow.
And then Dad mentored under a man that you've probably heard of, Lester Roloff.
Really?
And he was, I believe he was saved under his ministry and kind of mentored up under him.
Now, Lester Roloff, Corpus Christi,
right.
I'm thinking, and he was known for his orphanages.
He
Isn't that
was.
correct?
Yeah.
And then an evangelistic ministry that would go out from there on the radio. I
Right.
quote him sometimes,
that-
Brian. I quote him, and then one of the statements I remember him saying, when he would just really feel like the Lord was being in a service, and he said, I feel that breeze from another land this morning. I
good.
feel that breeze from another land. That meant church was happening. The Lord had moved into the room. Well, no,
that's
I
good.
declare, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So how long was that? Do you actually work under?
He
Brother
did.
Roloff?
I mean, he kind of really was. I think Brother Roloff was sort of a mentor to Dad. He was called. Dad was called to the ministry under him, and so Dad's got some interesting Roloff stories that he tells, and then Mother, you know, I think they met in Corpus, and
So this is after the war, right?
actually he was married and then went, you know.
Okay.
So probably all kind of happening together.
Okay.
Within you know that time frame. I'm not sure if it was before the war started or anything like that, but all during that. He came back. You know, I tell people, you know, he stormed the beaches of Normandy. He came from that, and he started storming the beaches of men's hearts. With the gospel. And so he just immediately after that came and began preaching. I think his first church was in Leander, Texas, and that's where my siblings were born. Eventually, he was down in Raymondville, which is where I was born. And so grew up in the Baptist church for many years. Dad pastored, you know, even interim pastor, senior pastor, until probably he was in his mid-80s or something like that. So long time. So I really grew up in that environment with 2 brothers, 2 sisters. And
Were you the baby?
I was not. I was the 4th.
You were number 4.
Number
out of
4.
5.
Yeah.
How about that?
So
How about that? And you don't seem to bear too many scars and wounds from growing up in a Baptist preacher's house. You know, our kid, that's how I grew up, actually, and then our kids, the same thing. They have stories to tell. You know, there's some things because the church is made up of people. It's never going to be a perfect entity.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, very thankful for that heritage for the Southern Baptist Church. You know, I was saved in that at 7 years old, and I loved the Wednesday nights. I loved the Wednesday night dinners, the covered dish dinners. I loved the training union, the Sunday school, RAs, GAs, all the things that came with it. But there was a time later on in my life that I felt constrained to some degree. Maybe a lot of it was just me, not so much a denomination. But, and so I didn't feel committed to that, to have to stay there. So I found Alamo City, even though it was also a Southern Baptist church, it really kind of wasn't. It was really a good step for my spiritual walk to,
We've called it Baptist in our heritage, Baptist with a little b, lowercase b, and not the capital B, you know, for whatever distinction that would make. But we really do, and all of my formal training has been in Southern Baptist institutions, and my father, my grandfather, an uncle were all that were greatly influential in my life during that season. But I think the thing, Brian, that as time has gone on, that has been an ache for was some things that came out of the Jesus Revolution that we were exposed to in the 70s, early 70s, and it was the freedom, and it was the joy. You know, it was that everything didn't have to be in the bulletin, the Sunday morning bulletin. You know, and there you really would have permission to think outside the box a little bit and enjoy. It's learning to enjoy the Lord, the presence of the Lord in other settings. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for my teachers and
Amen.
mentors that
Yes.
but even, you know, they would, I think, if a number of them were still alive today, they would say yes, and this was their cry: you pursue Jesus,
Yeah.
and you pray for the Spirit to be poured out. You know, those things were, those are not unknown terms.
Yeah.
But maybe we've walked in a little more freedom since some
Yeah.
of those days.
Yeah. I remember one time my dad telling me later on in life, he said, "Brian, you don't know how many times I was up there, you know, sitting on the podium and going through the song service, and you know, I was getting ready to go up and preach." He said, "Man, I wanted to lift my hands."
Really?
He said, "But you know, I just couldn't
What
do
would
it."
people think if I
Yeah,
did? Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I attended a funeral with Dad once in his latter years. In fact, we went to the funeral. The man that he thought was going to be preaching his funeral, this man was killed in a car accident. But Dad and I were sitting kind of in the back of the auditorium. There's quite a few people there, and we were singing "Amazing Grace." Dad lifted his hand. I
That's
think
great.
it was a real moment
Yeah,
of freedom.
freedom. Again,
Yeah.
freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things that was kind of the dividing line in congregations, churches in the Jesus movement. It was that how willing, how much of a risk you're willing to take to go with the freedom that it would seem the Spirit of the Lord was doing in those places. And some would just shut it down, lock it down. Those hippies with the long hair and the, you know, and walking into church in flip-flops, they're not welcome here.
Yeah.
But then there were others would say, you know, what would Jesus do? Who would Jesus love? Who would be drawn to Jesus? And there was a division along some of those lines that, well, you can't do that here. This is not what we do. And then, but then you'd be around ones free. I think some of the ones that walked in more freedom were ones who had less of a traditional church background to shape that. If they came just straight out of whatever the drug culture was or whatever, they didn't know anything about anything.
Right.
But when the Lord would bless them, it was easy for them to lift their hands.
Yeah.
You know, that we share a lot of similar tracks on that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
You know, my longing that I felt I couldn't find an answer for was everything that I had learned was really good. Sunday school training, all the things, the training RAs, all that.
Yeah.
But it was all just like stories. And it was like there was a part of me that wanted to be a story.
Yeah.
I wanted to see a Red Sea part, you know, and that was, I felt like, why, you know, these are great stories. I want to have one of my own, you know. And for some reason, I felt like, man, I just somehow there needs to be more on my part, more faith, more something that was a driver to find a place of worship that kind of shared that same. Yeah. It's not just learning, but, you know, experiencing faith.
Yeah. So where did that take you?
Well, when we moved to San Antonio, I was married and got married to Peggy. Peggy and I have been married for 52 years now.
Listen to you. How about that?
We've known each other since the 4th grade. You know, most people say high school sweethearts. I go all the way back to elementary.
Listen, okay, so where was that? Where were you in elementary?
That was in Idlewood.
In Idlewood.
Outside of Lubbock. And and then we have 5 children. We have 4 sons and 1 daughter and 3 grandchildren.
Great.
One of them came yesterday.
Listen, really?
Our 2nd grandson.
Whoa.
Yeah, he was born yesterday.
Now, where do they live?
They live here.
Here?
Yeah, he was born in Methodist Hospital last night.
How about
that?
Well, 2 of ours were born in Methodist Hospital.
Is that? Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
And children, not grandchildren. That's awesome.
Yeah. So when we moved here, we had 3 children. Moved to San Antonio, and let's see, is that right? 2. We had 2 children, 2 boys, and then we found a church here, and a Southern Baptist church, and then we stumbled into Sammy Tippett.
Yeah.
About 2 or 3 years after we moved here. That started changing some things. And he was at a Southern Baptist church, University Baptist Church here in San Antonio. And, but it wasn't the kind of Southern Baptist that I had ever really been a part of. And so God started doing it's like, this is kind of what I've been longing for, something like this. And so I was under Sammy pastored that church for just a short period. Then he went on up to Washington. But that kind of started a new hunger for me and my family.
Okay, now what were you doing professionally then? You had a wife and children. How'd you make a living?
Well, I went to school at West Texas State University, which was in Canyon.
Wow.
Yeah, and by the way, but I'm curious to ask you something, because that's right outside of Amarillo, and I believe you were in Amarillo during those years. That was like in '76, something like that. And we went to First Baptist Church in Canyon, a guy by the name of Jim Hancock. Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. Does that name ring a bell?
I know Jim, knew of Jim. We were at the San Jacinto Baptist Church in Amarillo, and we were there from like 76 to 78.
Okay, right.
I think, no, wait a minute. No, that's not right. It would have been the early 80s, because we moved here, started at First Baptist Church here in '84. Okay. And we had been in Hobart, Oklahoma, 78 and 79, right out of seminary. And then from 80 to the end of '83, we were at San Jacinto in Amarillo. So we may have been a little after you.
Maybe so. Yeah. That might be right, because for some reason I was thinking you might have been there, but that was just right there during that time.
Around that time. Yeah. I knew Jim. I knew of him.
Okay. Yeah. He was great. I loved Jim, and he was a great pastor. He really probably was I loved him. His preaching was great, had a very humble heart. And so that really I was ordained as a deacon in that church under Jim. And so I just I began to catch more fire, I guess is what you could say at that point. And so I worked at a bank. I graduated from West Texas State, which is a Canyon, with an accounting degree. Prior to that, I was working at a gas station. And so a bank was looking for a bank auditor. She had to have an accounting degree. And so, did I want to pump gas or did I want to go get a real job? And so that was back in the days when you really pumped gas, for people.
Sure.
So I went and started at a bank there in Canyon, and Frost Bank recruited me from that position to come here and work for their banks. And so I came here and worked for Frost for about 6 years. Brought my family up here.
Now, when did you get your CPA? When was that?
I got
prior
that
to coming here?
No, it was after.
Okay.
I worked for a guy named Norton Hargis, who was head of the audit department at Frost. And he strongly encouraged me to get my CPA.
Did he?
I didn't want to, but I followed his lead and got it. And so while I was at Frost is when I ended up getting that. I don't do CPA stuff. I will not do anyone's taxes but my own, and I typically don't do what most CPAs do. Yeah. But he thought it would be important to get that for my career, and he was right on target. Yeah. God really used him, because that has really helped open some doors for me later on. So I was at Frost and worked for Frost until about 1984. And San Antonio Savings, I don't know, a lot of people may remember them, but they were a big thrift here in San Antonio. They wanted me to come over and head out their audit area. So I went there. And
internal audit.
Internal audit, right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Make sure we're crossing all the T's, dotting the I's, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
How about that?
So I went there and for 6 years, and then the big real estate bust in '90 happened. San Antonio Savings went under, and they got bought out, merged. The government merged them into First Gibraltar, and they're gone. But about 600 of us lost our jobs, when that happened. We had 4 kids at the time, and we were expecting our 5th one. Peggy had just been diagnosed with cancer, melanoma cancer, and and I was in the unemployment line.
Oh,
right down there. I don't know. It used to be down there on Blanco and West Avenue, or somewhere down there. I don't know if it's still there. Every 2 weeks, sit in line, and I'll remember as if it was yesterday. $217 every 2 weeks. It was that check would come rolling in.
Wow.
But you had to prove that you were looking for a job, and so you had to talk to someone within that 2-week period. But it was a great time for me. It was a hard time for me and my family.
Was that your only income?
I was on a severance package from First Gibraltar. They gave us 3 months. They didn't give everybody that, but I was on a 3 months severance package, and so that was it. Peggy was not working, but it's a great time.
Well,
you know what I mean by great. It was a hard time that was great for me.
Yeah. Well, finish that. We got, because you've evidently went from there. Something started working out.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you have a limited time under unemployment, and I was I can't remember 3-4 months, and then they quit sending the check, and I was on like my last month or so. I had a couple of more checks that were going to come in
of the severance agreement.
Yeah, and everything was we didn't have a lot of retirement through Frost and SASA, but San Antonio Savings, but it all was, we spent all that, just living, trying to feed 4 kids and all that good stuff. And so I got a call from a recruiter, and he said, "Brian, I've got a position in Dallas with the largest mortgage company in the world." The name of the company was Lomas and Nettleton. Most people back in those days, in the 90s, most of their mortgages were with Lomas and Nettleton Mortgage. And they were looking for someone to come head out their internal audit department. And so I went up to Dallas, interviewed, and I met a couple of men. One man, he was chairman of their boards. The name was Jess Hay. And Jess Hay, he was like the Tom Frost of San Antonio. He was like, some of his accolades, he was a giant in the mortgage company business, but he was also the treasurer of the Democratic National Committee, and he was close friends with the young Arkansas governor at the time by the name of Bill Clinton. And so he was that kind of a personality. So I interviewed with him, and there was another man by the name of Gene Bishop, who was the builder, the originator of M-Bank, which is no longer around, but M-Bank back at that time was the largest bank in Texas. And but Gene was at Lomas at this time. So I went and visited with those 2 men, and I thought, man, this is just too good to be true, And so I got the call that they wanted me to come on board and hired me, offered me a great package, more than I'd ever made anywhere. And it just all seemed right.
Wow.
And so I prayed about it.
Sure.
And so I accepted, and I went up to meet their board. They wanted me to meet their board. So I took the family up there one day to Dallas and got up the day of the board meeting, and they sent Peggy and the kids to go house hunting. And I was sitting in the board meeting, and Jess Hayes at the end of the table, and this is kind of my 15 minutes in the sun. Just how could this be happening? Lord, you're so good. And so he's introducing me to these board members that some of them came from all over the country. I mean, just an unbelievable experience. And I'm sitting there, and within that 15 minutes of the sun, S-U-N, I'm experiencing internally another 15 minutes with the S-O-N.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Goodness.
And several times in the scripture, where God asks people, where are you? With Adam and Eve, and other times when obviously God's not trying to get information. He's trying to give you information. So, Lord, this is just going on right there at the board. Lord, what do you mean? I'm at the most unbelievable opportunity I could have ever dreamed for, asked for. And this is not what I want.
Oh my goodness.
And
as you sat there.
As I sat there internally, and there was just no peace. And so I wrestled with that as they all welcomed me, and I had dinner the night before with the audit staff, and my family was out looking for houses, and so I came. I didn't say a word to anybody. I just came home.
But it was strong in you. You knew
oh
it.
yeah.
You knew it. Had you ever had anything like that happen to you, where you just felt like the Lord, it was a yes or it was a no, but you knew it strongly? Anything like that before?
Not really.
Yeah.
That I can recall.
But you knew.
I knew something was not right. And I couldn't believe that it would be, that's not what he wanted. And so I came home, I called my parents, and I called mother answered the phone and kind of told her the story. And she said, well, Brian, you got to take care of those babies, and you got a wife to take care of. The loving mother's response. And I said, well, Mom, can I talk to Dad? And so Dad gets on the phone. I said, Dad, I get it. I get all that, but there's just not happening in in my heart. It's just, I've got to check. I really don't even really know what it is. And Dad told me, he said, Brian, you've got to go with your heart.
Got to go with your heart.
With your heart.
Yeah.
And I just needed someone to be with me on that decision, And it happened to be my dad. So I called them up, and
the next day?
The next day.
Yeah.
I visited with my family that morning, and told them, I don't think the Lord.
And you didn't have a plan B. You didn't have another option at the moment.
Well, this is David.
Yeah.
This is. There was a plan B, but it was like God was saying, Brian, I kept throwing this, but I'm going to be before the CEO of all CEOs on a daily basis. And it's like God said, I don't want you in front of a CEO. I want you in front of hundreds of CEOs.
Whoa.
And I had no idea what that even meant. I didn't know if that was just a figment of my imagination or what. And he didn't really say a whole lot, the Lord. Just, I knew that there was something different, that he wanted for me and my family.
Wow. And
so that's when came back a bank down in Laredo. You remember Keith Roden?
Sure.
Well,
yeah.
Keith was their CFO.
Okay.
And he said, Brian, we need some help with our internal audit. We can give you about 40 hours a month.
40 hours a month.
A month.
A week. Yeah.
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 Yeah. 40 hours a month. We'll pay you $50 an hour. And so 2,000 was better than 217. So I said, you know what? Let's go. And that's when what I'm doing now is what I started doing then. I do outsourcing for banks, internal audit outsourcing for banks. And so I'm still in the bank internal auditing, but God kind of created that.
Wow.
I call it a ministry, but the world would call it a business. And so that started in 1990 out of all that.
Isn't that something?
And so we're still here. Lomas and Nettleton, David, in 5 years went bankrupt.
Went bankrupt, and it was the biggest of the big.
It's the biggest in the world, mortgage company.
Went
in
bankrupt.
The world. Went bankrupt. They're gone.
Oh.
They've been gone for years. Kendrick Service is still around. We're not huge. We've got about 15 people that work, in it. And we've got 40 banks that we do work for. But I've probably been in front of, since then, about 100 CEOs.
Listen.
It hasn't become 1,000 yet, but God's not done. There's no telling where He's going to go with it. But that's
isn't that something?
Yeah, it's.
That really, Brian. I hadn't heard that part of your story. I don't think until now. But I tell you, it is similar to some other ones that in a completely secular setting. No steeple anywhere, no Bible on the desk anywhere. Nobody's singing Amazing Grace, and but you're in a place and you have the sense of the Lord speaking something to you, putting something. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I've heard the reports that in meetings, trying to work a way through some financial issue that the company has not been able to figure out, that a follower of Jesus sitting there, been brought to that place of elevation. You were elevated to that place. Only the Lord could have opened the doors and put you there. Amen. But when you're there, He's there. He's there, and He speaks to you. And it wasn't to take that one, but it was to do something like that, but in another setting. And
right.
That's part of why I wanted to do this podcast like this, to be able to say, the Lord puts you where He wants you to be. And it's not necessarily everybody's going to be standing behind a microphone on Sunday morning with sermon notes, hollering and sweating. It's that where He puts you, according to the way He's wired you. And you can count on Him to be real to you, to be relevant, to be practical, right where you are. That's so powerful to me. The fact that you had the sense that He spoke to you, and it was a check in your spirit.
Yeah.
When everything else was saying, "Man, go for it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is what this is the dream as you described." But there was something different, and there was something better, and something safer, and more provision. 5 years later, that, as you said, that company was going to be bankrupt. What a story! Good gracious!
It's His story for sure. I was, I always think about Abraham when God asked him to do what He did with Isaac, and I think Abraham was struggling with his faith. It's just me. I think he was struggling. I think he'd gone through some difficult times with Hagar and with some other situations, and I think he was maybe wondering about his faith. And so I think God knew a lot more about Abraham's faith than Abraham did. But He needed to show Abraham what really was in his heart. He really does love the Lord, Abraham. Yeah. I know he does. But I need to show Abraham that. And I felt like that was a moment for me that I think God knew all along. God did know all along what was going to happen, but He needed to put me in a situation, a test to show me, Brian, good job.
Wow.
I knew you had it, but you were having some doubts. And so it really, that's still very strong in me. That time with Him.
So what would you say to maybe younger guys in the light of what your journey and maybe that even too? What would you say to younger men and women maybe coming up professionally in a setting like that? Or maybe there's somebody in the middle years, or maybe toward the end of their time, but they're dealing with some of those same things. What would you say?
Well, this may be vague, you've got to have a 15 minutes in the sun with the sun. Somehow, some way, that needs to happen.
The S-O-N.
The S-O-N.
Yeah.
The S-U-N might be good for a day or a week or a year. But the S-O-N, I mean, I'm still radiating from that 15 minutes.
And that was when he said, "This isn't it." Right?
Yeah, right.
It was that. It wasn't. Look at the door. I'm open for you.
Yeah.
You know?
You really.
Now, that's crazy, Brian. That's just absolutely crazy. But it's so real. It's so true.
It is.
Wow.
It. I think of Paul on the road to Damascus. He had that few moments with the sun.
Yeah.
And it changed everything. It changed his whole course. Changed everything. It changed his whole belief system. It changed everything. And I think each individual, we need that. Yeah. It doesn't take long if it's with him.
Absolutely.
You don't need that much time, but it needs to be with the right sun.
Yeah. And you got to be listening. You got to be, I mean,
it's not going to be easy. Yeah. But I think you'll know. This might be that 15 minutes with the S-O-N. Jesus with Peter, after he rose and there on the beach.
Yeah.
I just felt like that few moments with Jesus when, Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? I think that was really maybe Peter's 15 minutes in the sun that just changed everything.
Well, and the part of that too is that it was not that, Peter had gone from one peak of obedience and to the next peak. We're valley. I don't even know the man. I don't even know him. But for there to be the sense that in that place even of failure, his heart still turned toward Jesus, and Jesus responded to that heart toward him. And 15 minutes with the sun. Yeah. You need to write a book. You need to put that down somewhere and pen to paper. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's just, and so the 40 banks that you're involved with, and the team that you have go for. How do you coach them? What do you instruct them? Anything that would mark the Kendrick entity?
Yeah, it's a ministry. We say that all the time. It's a ministry. God's given us a gift, auditing. He's opened doors with banks because it's all with banks. But our number one, course is to minister to the hearts of people. Pray for them. God gives us an opportunity. We try to send out different gifts that really proclaim our faith once a year to all of our clients, and just different ways. Yeah. It's a ministry, and that's mostly what we talk about. We have all different types of people, younger, older people, and we're not all part of the same church.
Sure.
And but it is his deal. It's his deal. There was a time, David, when I started this that I thought, well, I'll grow this and then I'll sell it, and that'll be my retirement. Kind of build that back up. And several years ago, God said, Brian, that's not what I want either. I own this.
Yeah.
The IRS sees me as a sole proprietor. God's shown me there's a different entity. It's sole deity, sole deityship. It's his, and so he wants it to keep going. I kind of had this vision of Moses.
Yeah.
Had his chapter, had his season, but then Joshua and wherever God wants to take. It's God's deal. So in that regard, it's a ministry. It's not to be sold. It's not to cash in on. It's his. And so my hope and prayer is that as long as it's in God's heart to minister to bankers, that he'll use this. An auditing firm, really, that's Lord?
Yeah.
But really, Brian, I want to use an auditing firm to reach some bankers. And so,
well, when you operate with integrity and you're able to come with hope, speak hope. I remember there was an older preacher that was on my ordaining council years ago, back before the earth crust hardened when I first started. He said, and he was a Houston pastor of a leading church there, but he looked at me and he said, David, if you will always preach to broken people, you will always have a place to preach. And it doesn't matter the Phi Beta Kappa by the name, it doesn't matter what kind of car is being driven in the parked in the parking lot. Broken hearts have no ethnicity, have no educational. I mean, it's one of the things that just cuts through it all. And when you step into the banking industry, that's your field, that's your harvest field. And and Jesus would say it's the ones who are the poor in spirit who are going to get the kingdom. And you have that heart to gravitate toward the ones that would listen to a message of hope. That is our message.
Yeah.
Jesus
Amen.
is the hope. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And I'm looking forward to this going out to a whole bunch of folks that need to know there is a CPA with a soul. Somewhere. There are many, and Brian Kendrick is absolutely one of those. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to having Brian back to tell some more of the rest of his story at some point in the future. So thank you all for being a part of There Is More today. God bless you.